Hello, welcome to this video, and on this video I'm going to be going through the 10 greatest progressive rock guitarists of all time, ranked from number 10 to number 1. Of course, this is going to be very influenced by my tastes. I've recently done my 10 greatest prog bands, I've done my 10 greatest prog drummers. This one, when I was going through the list, I made the list originally and I thought, well, this person's got to be on just because of influence and how loved they are. And I thought, but I'm not really one of my favourite guitar players. So in the end, I've gone for stuff which is a little bit more my subjective taste, because I think in this case it will make it just a little bit more interesting. So I apologise to any fans of Dave Gilmour. I apologise to any fans of Andy Latimer. I know they're not on this list, right? Also, I've tried to keep it, as with my other lists that I've done like this, smack in the prog genre. So there's a whole host of metal guitarists that I thought should have gone on. Should Yngwie Malmsteen go on? I mean, that's pretty proggy. And a lot of modern guitarists haven't made the list as well, you know, like John Petrucci, for example, or Guthrie Govan. All of these were all on the list at one point, but I've gone through it and I've come up with my 10 greatest progressive rock guitarists ranked 10 to 1. Right, so are we ready to get going on this? Right, now normally I like to hold an album up, but for the first two I haven't got any albums to hold up. I haven't been able to find any in my collection. I've only got one album of each of these guitarists, but I really do love their playing, and I think in terms of progressive rock we really need to put them on the list. So what's been my criteria for the list? Well, I feel, of course, it's got to be popularity. That's one of the things, that these people have really made a mark on progressive rock in terms of sales and fame. The other would be innovation. You know, what have they pioneered? What have they brought as a signature sound to progressive rock? And also another thing I thought of is guitarists that have done something else. I haven't gone so much for the sort of blues-based guitarists that could have sat in a rock band but just happened to be in a prog band. I think Dave Gilmour's a guitarist like this, incredible guitar player, but really rooted in sort of pentatonic blues playing, which he weaves into Pink Floyd so masterfully, and it's beautiful guitar playing. But I really wanted to cover some of the more weirder guitarists that are out there. So who have I got at number 10? And like I say, I haven't got an album to hold up. But this guy has been a huge influence on me. He's been a huge influence on many of the guitarists I've worked with over the years. He really has created a style and approach to progressive rock that I think has been very influential over the last 30 years. And that guitarist at number 10 is Francis Dunnery, of It Bites and of his own solo fame. Francis emerges in what seemed like a pop band. You know, I haven't talked about It Bites on this channel at all, but It Bites emerged as like a pop band in the late 80s. They had a huge hit record, you know, with Calling All the Heroes. Anyone who rushed and bought that album would have found out that it was chocked full of progressive rock. And right at the centre of it was the incredible charismatic character of Francis Dunnery. Fantastic singer, fantastic frontman, and a really, really incredible guitarist. At the start, really rooted in a sort of Allan Holdsworth approach, but really interesting because he was channeling that Holdsworth approach into prog and pop music. Right, I think as time has gone on, Francis has really developed his own style of guitar playing. What else can I say? I first came across him in the 80s when Channel 4, I think it was Channel 4, did a documentary called Twang Bang Kerrang! It was a documentary about the guitar, and there was a very young Francis Dunnery in there, sat with a Squire Strat on his lap, playing the most insane legato all over the guitar. And all us young guitarists saw this, went, oh, that's that guy at that pop band, and saw that guitar playing, and we were quite dumbfounded by it. Another thing that I think is worth mentioning is that for a number of years I played drums for Robert Plant. And in the early 90s, Francis had been the guitarist with Robert Plant. And of all the musicians Robert had played with, I think Robert told more stories about Francis, or Frank, depending on where you're coming from, or depending on where Francis or Frank is coming from. But he told more stories about Francis than any other musician he'd ever worked with. And I think that is a testament to this guy's charisma, character, ability, and sheer force. It's a force of nature. You know, so Francis, I love you. All of us think you're a fantastic player. You've had an incredible influence on prog and music, and I just wanted to call out that guy at number 10. Right, at number 9, I've got a guitarist who is, I wish I could hold the album up, and I only got one album, I think, by him, and that album's Moving Waves, which of course is by Focus, and we're talking about the incredible Jan Akkerman. When I bought Moving Waves as a very young musician, I was floored by Jan Ackerman's technique. He has almost like a jazz approach, very, you know, precise picking. I think in the early 70s he must have been one of the most precise sort of alternate picking speed guys around. You know, he's like almost in a Al Di Meola, John McLaughlin way. Of course, Focus, I haven't talked about much on this channel. I am a fan of Focus, and I think they're absolutely fantastic. I had a number of albums when I was a kid, and as I said, some of the albums I lost as I sold them to buy fusion albums. But when I first heard Focus, above all else, it was Jan's incredible guitar playing, and I think, you know, he needs a mention at number 9 as being a very important guitarist in the history of progressive rock. Right, let's get on to, I've got some props now, let's get on to number 8. So who have I got at number 8? One of my favourite guitarists on the planet. I wondered whether this guy should be on the list. Is this guy a progressive rock guitarist? Of course he is. And this guy has dominated the guitar scene for the last 40 years. Steve Vai on this list represents all those guitarists in the 80s, the metal guitarists, the Joe Satrianis, the Vinnie Moore, the Yngwie Malmsteens, you know, the Jason Beckers, the Paul Gilberts. And although they seem to be coming out of a rock and metal scene, they were all very touched by progressive rock. I would say that Steve Vai, amongst them all, really is a progressive rock artist. I think all of his albums are just dripping with everything that you would class as progressive rock. I think his style and approach and his compositional approach has been hugely influential on the world of progressive rock. This album here, which sold 1 million copies in 1989, is an out-and-out progressive rock album. He needs to get props for putting an album like this in the charts. This is a double album. It comes with this album, Modern Primitive, which is was released later, and it actually covers the material between Flexible and Passion of Warfare, and this is really some way out progressive rock music on here. Steve Vai has got incredible virtuosity, but he's got such a signature style for me. He's not like a fusion guitarist, he's not like a metal guitarist. He has a signature sound. You can recognise Steve Vai straight away as soon as he plays a lick or bends a note, or even just his tone, you can recognise that guy. I think that sound and that approach has really influenced so many guitarists on the contemporary scene. So yes, at number 8 we have the incredible Steve Vai. Right, so who do I have at number 7? One of the things I love about progressive rock guitarists as opposed to normal guitarists is that normal guitarists, rock guitarists, whatever you want to call them, pop guitarists, they tend to channel an approach that comes out of the blues. We're really coming out of Hendrix, we're coming out of Eric Clapton, and see, as soon as I say Jimi Hendrix, I think, is he a progressive rock guitarist? He's probably the ultimate progressive rock guitarist. Should he be on the list? I don't know. So the trouble with these videos, I question myself as I do them. Jimi Hendrix, he's too great to go on the list, isn't he? I mean, that's God. Let's just leave him over there. So, and one of the things that sets Hendrix apart is his searching for sounds. He's searching for new approaches. Hendrix was rooted in the blues, but he also wasn't afraid of almost approaching the guitar like a synthesizer. The one guitarist for me that's pushed the guitar out further than anybody else, and I thought had to be on this list at number 7, is the incredible Adrian Belew. Right, and I think this guy has such a unique approach to the guitar. Of course, he should get the credentials there for, you know, his work in King Crimson, which is obviously out now, PROG. But I also loved his solo albums, especially this first Lone Rhino and this. And this is an eclectic, insane, you know, mixture of rock and roll, new wave, prog, you know, avant-garde, the Beatles. And Belew is such an incredible singer, such an incredible songwriter, but his guitar playing is incredible. His approach to the guitar as a sound source, and his ability to almost emulate anything that's around him. He'll emulate the sound of an elephant, he'll emulate the sound of birds flying or a car starting. I think is really important. I think he has to be put on this list. He's been around for so long, he's played with so many different people. He has one foot in new wave. I think it's interesting when he emerged. So he first emerged in Frank Zappa's band. I mean, he's played with Frank Zappa, played with King Crimson. I mean, how much more prog credentials do you need? But straight away as he came out, he was grabbed by bands like Talking Heads, and he bridges that gap so well. A very futuristic musician. So yes, at number, was it 7 or 8? I can't remember. He's Adrian Belew. So let's move on to, I think this is number 7 now. You can keep count. One of my favourite progressive rock guitarists of all time, and this is a personal favourite. I just love this guy. Let's just get on with it. So here he is, Steve Hillage. Okay, so Steve Hillage first emerged in Gong. He appeared, I think he's on Flying Teapot. He doesn't actually do that much, but then Angel's Egg, you suddenly hear that piercing, beautiful, blues influenced, but also very jazzy, very floaty guitar, very penetrating sound. And on those Gong albums, I think he just really plays incredibly. But also, we must mention his solo albums. So Fish Rising, I think, is the first, which is almost like a Gong album, and it's a masterpiece. Very Gong sounding on this one, which I think is produced by Todd Rundgren, and is basically Utopia, I'm pretty sure, on here. We start to hear a new sound emerging. And Steve Hillage is moving into almost like a new age way, progressive rock way of playing music. He's interested in ambience, he's interested in electronics, and of course much later, when dance music emerged, he became a touchstone, and I think that's why he needs to be on this list. I believe there's a very, very strong link between 70s progressive rock and late 80s, early 90s dance music. And with the group System 7, I think he was really rediscovered by groups like the Orb, System 7, and that really brought Hillage back. And I think if there's an argument for the huge influence that progressive rock has had on all music, then Hillage needs to be in there, because his influence on dance music was profound. It really was. And I think albums like Green and Radio Dome Music was so important to that genre. So this is a pretty important musician and a pretty important guitar player. So here we have Steve Hillage at number 7, I think it was, right? Who do I have at number 6? He has to be on the list. Frank Zappa. Okay? Frank Zappa, composer, comedian, political commentator, avant-garde musician, band leader, record label owner. This guy's done absolutely everything, and right in the centre of it is his incredible guitar playing. And that guitar playing, I think, has been underestimated by the music industry, probably because Zappa does so much stuff. As I've said, I think that Shut Up and Play Your Guitar needs to be valued as much as a album like Kind of Blue or A Love Supreme. I think it's one of the great fusion jazz albums, as is this. I really wanted to pull this one out, Guitar, another double album of Frank's incredible guitar playing. Frank again is rooted in the blues, but that modern classical influence and also his compositional approach to guitar playing means, I think, that when you sit and listen to Frank Zappa guitar solo, he can keep you interested for hours. How does he do this? By really seeing his guitar solos as a compositional part of the tune. This is very, very prog, I think. He places his guitar into the music as a part, as a piece. He has an incredible guitar tone, one of the most beautiful guitar tones in rock history. And again, I think he's a pioneer of sounds. This is something that I think all these guitarists have done to greater or lesser extent. And I think Zappa's done it to a great extent. He sees the guitar as a synthesizer, as a sound source, and he explores those things. So there we have it at number, I think it's 6. I think I've lost count. It's Frank Zappa guitar. Lovely. So this is at number 4. So I think that was number 5. This is at number 4. All right. Right. Now this guy is such a huge influence on me. It's such a huge influence on guitar playing. If I was doing the 10 greatest guitarists, I think this guy would be at number 1. His work encompasses so many different styles and so many different approaches. Many people see him as a jazz guitarist or a fusion guitarist, but I think his work in progressive rock is unparalleled, and it's of course Allan Holdsworth. There, let's see the man. There he is. All right. Is this a progressive rock album? You bet. I believe that Holdsworth's solo albums are a redefinition of progressive rock, without a doubt. He does everything that progressive rock does, but he takes it even further out. But if we just discount what he did there, I think his guitar playing with UK is unparalleled. I would say if I was rating prog guitar solos, the In the Dead of Night guitar solo would probably be at number 1. The only reason why I haven't put this guy at number 1 is because there's some really obvious guitar players that we need to include who are just sort of legendary in the history of progressive rock. I've talked about Holdsworth at length on this channel, and I will again. I'm planning to do soon a video on his album None Too Soon, because I think that album gets forgotten, where he sort of, that's his jazz standard album, and he does a whole bunch of Coltrane stuff and some Bill Evans stuff. In the middle of that album there is a track called None Too Soon, part 1 and part 2, with this sort of ambient syntax interlude in the middle, and it forms a kind of suite. Even on that album, Holdsworth delivers an incredible piece of progressive rock. So I cannot rate this guy higher. Incredible. Right, so we're in the top 3 now, and I think these could all vie for number 1. So who have I got at number 3? Steve Hackett. Okay, Steve Hackett for me is a signature guitarist. You can recognize his sound straight away. He has a very unique approach to the guitar, but he's very versatile. He does lots of different things on the album. He's pushing the envelope all the time. On Nursery Crime, he actually plays tapping on the guitar on the hogweed. You know, if you turn the hogweed, he taps on the guitar in 1971, sort of a good 5 or 6 years before Eddie Van Halen. It's quite incredible stuff. Really great guitars. I mean, all these guitarists have the same attributes that we're going to be going on now. Is a unique approach to a sound, not being rooted in the blues. There's blues licks there, but there's something else there, and they're not rooted in jazz. There's something else going on. A sort of classical guitar approach sometimes, and a sound and technique and approach which is all their own. And I think in Steve Hackett's case, he has that in bucket loads. I mean, in terms of prog bands, when I was playing in the prog bands, Steve Hackett seemed to be the guy for so many bands I worked with on the neo prog scene. So right, we need to get a move on. So who have I got number 2? These two last ones are almost like joint number 1. I don't know which order to put them. So at number 2 I've got Robert Fripp. I mean, he is the prog guitarist of all time, isn't he? Right? He invents the genre. He's it's everything we've said about all the other guys. A completely unique approach. Seeing the guitar as a sort of sound source, exploring the outer limits of guitar. In King Crimson, I felt he used his guitar in a much more compositional and structural way. On albums like this, he seems to stretch out and do a lot of other stuff. This, I think, is one of the greatest progressive rock albums ever made. He does everything on this album. If you're a Crimson fan and you haven't got this, buy this, because this is like the definitive Robert Fripp album. He does everything he ever has done. The ambient loop stuff, rock guitar, the punky stuff, full on prog. He's got Michael Walden on drums. What more do you want? So that's who I've got at number 2. So of course at number 1 it has to be Steve Howe. Steve Howe is just so versatile. He's so exploratory. At 1 minute it's like legato, distorted guitar, almost like Allan Holdsworth. And then another point he's playing like slide guitar, but it sounds like slide guitar in space. Then he's playing classical parts. Then he's playing like flamenco parts. This guy could do so much, and he was doing it so early in the history of rock guitar playing. People go on about Clapton, they go on about Jimmy Page and Ritchie Blackmore, but in 1971, when this guy emerges, he is just so far ahead of anybody around him. I know people that were working in London in the 60s when he was in the band Tomorrow, and they've told me, you know, people would go and see Steve Howe at that point, and it was just astonishing what he was doing. So that's who I've got at number 1. So that is my 10 greatest prog guitarists ranked. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you like, please like. If you want to subscribe, please subscribe. And if you really want to support me, go and check my Patreon. It's in the link below, and I'll see you on the next video. Thanks for watching.